間に合ったよね。ほんの気持ちよ。気にしないで。
ガツンとくるやつで
この程度か。
悪い子ね。
覚悟しろ。
バトル体験を改善2倍速ってこんなもん。
この程度か。
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Here we are with the Healbot, aka Natasha, one of the doctors in the underground city of Belobog, and let us get straight into the swing of things. So I mentioned Healbot. Yes, she indeed is the healer of the game. She is part of the Abundance Path, which are typically characters that are all about healing allies to ensure that the team never dies. So at the current moment in Honkai Star Rail, as far as the closed beta is concerned, we only have two notable characters, one being Natasha, the 4-star, and the other being Luocha, the 5-star, and these are both your notable healers. So the difference between those two characters I'll get into once I make a guide for Luocha, but for the time being, Natasha is a physical character. She does physical damage compared to Luocha, who is more imaginary. And so that is really the main difference, I would say. Well, there are other differences too, but mainly their actual element is very different. Now, as far as their overall game plan is concerned, in terms of Natasha, again, she really is all about just healing the entire squad, making sure no one dies. So let's get straight to her basic attack. Behind the Kindness, single attack deals 80% of Natasha's attack as physical damage to a target enemy. Now, you don't necessarily have to invest in physical damage to this character, as I mentioned before several times. She is a healer, so you don't really need to be focusing too much on her damage output. Just focus primarily on ensuring that her healing is optimal. And here we have her skill, Love, Heal, and Choose. Heals a target ally for 12% of Natasha's max HP plus 102. Heals the ally for another 8% of Natasha's max HP plus 68 at the start of each turn for 2 turns. And then we have a bonus stat here called Recovery. When using skill, defense of healed allies is increased by 10% when continuous healing is active. Now this can be of great benefit to some characters, perhaps even like Gepard, who does scale on defense in terms of his shield. So this can be nice if you're going to be using them together, but that's just an idea to throw out there. And then next we have her ultimate, Gift of Rebirth, heals all allies for 16% of Natasha's max HP plus 136. Talent, Innervation, increases Natasha's outgoing healing to allies with 30% or lower HP by 37%. And then her technique, Hypnosis Research, immediately attacks the enemy. After entering battle, deals 80% of Natasha's attack as physical damage to a random enemy, with a 100% base chance to weaken all enemies. Enemies that are weakened deal 30% less damage to allies for 1 turn. Now this is a pretty solid technique. I think this is what also adds a little bit of combat medic to the equation for Natasha. As I said before, she's not necessarily a damage dealer, but being able to optimize her technique prior to battle can be of great merit to the team, especially for team comps that are all about taking advantage of the weakened state of enemies and, of course, doing more damage over time. So before we get into the deeper aspects, we are at level 60, and here are the stats for your viewing. Not much to be said here. Again, she is really just the healer, so crit rate, crit damage isn't so important compared to other characters, but of course outgoing healing boost is certainly one to look out for if you can obtain it, because that will make your healing that much greater. And then as you see, HP is just stacked to the top. This is currently 6,000 at level 60, so you can imagine at 80 out of 80 this will probably be close to maybe 7,000, maybe even 8,000 even if you invest correctly. And so we have the traces next. So traces, as I've mentioned several times before in other videos, this is really where you're leveling up your talents, or in this case, your traces. And so you have your basic attack, you have your ultimate, your skill, talent, technique, and then of course you have other substats that are part of the skill tree that allow you to increase, in this case, Natasha's outgoing healing, also effect resistance, max HP, some defense. Another ability here is the recovery, the one that we just saw earlier. And then of course we have more HP boosts. And then another bonus ability, recuperation, increases the duration of her skill's continuous healing effect for 1 turn. So making her even more of a heal bot on the field, which is really insane. For a 4-star, to be honest. This is a pretty good 4-star. So early game, mid game, even end game, Natasha I still feel is one of the better characters, especially if you need a healer on the team. She does a pretty good job. So again, straight to the point, nothing too special here to look at. Move on to the light cone. So this is Natasha's signature light cone. I currently have it at superimposition level 4, and it states that it increases the energy restoration rate of its wearer by 21% and increases outgoing healing of ultimate by 35%. So pretty good. I think this is really good for her, as it ensures that her energy recharge allows for her ultimate to be used consistently, therefore giving her the opportunity to fully heal and restore the health of the team. So this is really good. I think it's very fitting for her, and if you can superimposition it, or in this case, you know, enhance it or refine it, then of course you'll be on your way. Then we have our Eidolons. Eidolons for Natasha, of course, as you would guess, are typically catered towards more healing abilities, or in this case, energy restoration. So it says after being attacked, regenerate an additional 8 energy. Pretty good, honestly, for an E1. I think this is great because again, it allows for you to make quicker decisions on the fly with regards to your ultimate use, and having that energy restoration is really important in this game. Next, we have E2, clinical research. Using her ultimate grants continuous healing to allies with 30% or lower HP for 1 turn. At the start of their turn, their HP is restored by 10% of Natasha's max HP. So as long as you're just pumping HP into this character, essentially your team's never going to die. That's pretty much it. E3, the right cure. This is just your ultimate, and then of course your E5 is your skill upgrade. I would honestly say that E3, E5, I mean, honestly, if you can get the Eidolons to E6, awesome. You're just going to be pumping out more health for your team to not die. But are they necessary? That's all subjective. I think it really all depends on what you want. But I think for me, I think E1 is pretty good. You know, restoring energy is always nice. But let's keep going. This is E4. Miracle Cure. After being attacked, if Natasha's current HP is 30% or lower, heals 1 time to restore 20% of her max HP plus 160. This effect can only be triggered 1 time per battle. So she not only heals others, but she heals herself. So she is basically not dying on the field, and neither is your team. Pretty good, honestly, for a Eidolon. Allowing the characters to not die on the field is pretty good. And then we have E6, Doctor's Grace. Basic attack deals additional physical damage equal to 60% of Natasha's max HP. So this is where things can get interesting, and this is where I would mention before about how she can be more of a combat medic, because E6 I think is really where her damage potential can really shine, because as you've seen earlier with regards to her HP now at level 60, she's over 6,000. And if your basic attack is going to be doing additional damage equal to 60% of her max HP, I think you can do the math there. She can do some pretty decent damage output. Not to the extent of other characters like, let's say, Seal or Blade or Xinghuan, for example, but I think it's enough to say that for a character that's essentially a heal bot, being able to dish out some damage for the team and heal is really of great value. So if you can do it, if you can afford to get E6, which honestly is pretty easy, she's a 4-star character, which means that she's likely to be on a banner, and right now in the current game she actually is. Now granted, this is the actual beta, closed beta, so this obviously can change, but as you can see here on Seal's limited banner, you can see that Natasha is one of the 4-star characters to level up, or rather to earn on the banner up, alongside Arlan and March 7th. So that's really good. That means it's easy to get her Eidolons activated. So if we can get her to E6, fantastic. If not, I wouldn't stress about it too much. But if you're looking to make her somewhat of a pseudo DPS, combat medic, then E6 is definitely your best bet. And then lastly, we have the relics. So in terms of healing, in terms of HP, Passerby of Wandering Cloud is definitely her best set right now, currently in the game. Of course, when the full game releases, there's obviously going to be perhaps more implementation of other artifacts, or not artifacts, but relics rather. And so just something to take note of. But for the time being, this particular set is really good for her, as the 2-piece increases her max HP by 15%. 5-piece does another 15, so that's already 30% increase in your max HP, which is huge. And the 4-piece increases the wearer's outgoing healing by 10% and restores 1 skill point for allies immediately after entering combat. So that's actually really strong. The 4-piece is really good because if you've been watching rather the gameplay for Honkai Star Rail, you've noticed that your skill gauge is of great importance, because the more skill gauge you have, it means the more actions you can take with regards to using your skills and other abilities. And so when your skill gauge depletes to 0, it does make it somewhat difficult, because now you're depending solely on your basic attacks as opposed to your skill to do more damage. So being able to restore 1 skill point for allies immediately after entering combat is really, really good. So this makes Natasha a very, very formidable 4-star combatant / healer. And so for anyone out there who's watching and just was curious about whether or not Natasha was going to be bad or not, I don't think she's a bad character. I think she's honestly one of the better 4-stars. She does a great job of just ensuring everyone does not die. And the fact that she can heal herself on the fly with her Eidolons, if you can obtain them, is really solid. And then, of course, being able to obtain skill points for the team is also a great merit and long-term value. So that's pretty much it. There really isn't much else to say for Natasha. If I were to just say anything extra, as I said, going back to Eidolons, her E1 is really good, as it does restore energy for her, which is obviously really important. And then E2 can be nice. Of course, being able to provide continuous healing is always an excellent asset to any team. But as I said, once you get to E6, I think this is really where she becomes more of that combat medic, where she can do a little bit extra damage for the team. Not necessarily game-changing damage, but enough to, again, sustain and help the team out when she can. So going into more detail with the relics, just everything as before. You want to be focusing on HP substats. Crit rate really isn't that important. Maybe once you get to E6, maybe if you want to make her get some more crit rate and crit damage in there, it's fine. But for the sake of her being just a heal bot altogether, HP %, flat HP is great. Effect resistance is also good too, because it means that she's less resistant to other enemies' attacks, which makes her really good. Defense could be good too, if you want to up her defense so that way she doesn't die on the field. Attack % isn't really that important. Again, once you get to higher Eidolons, maybe, but for the sake of her being just a preferred heal bot, I think attack is not necessarily the go-to option. But yeah, flat HP is a great, HP % is great. Just like I said here, yeah, effect hit rate, not necessarily the best here, but yeah, if you get it, you get it, but it's not necessarily important for her because she's not really doing any sort of effect on the enemy. She's just healing your team, and that's pretty much it. Now, I went for attack here. I couldn't get an HP feat piece, so attack was my option for the time being. Hopefully I can get one, but of course the beta is going to be ending very soon, so Sag. Then of course we have HP on the neck, and then outgoing healing boost on the article, which is what you're looking for, because more outgoing healing boost just means faster healing, which is obviously good. So that about covers her for relics. Hopefully this has given you somewhat of a closer look at what Natasha can do for the team. And come full release of Honkai Star Rail, hopefully with more sets implemented into the game, we can see a little bit more diversity. But for the time being, as I mentioned, the Passerby of Wandering Cloud is definitely a good set for her. And so long as you focus on building your HP and getting HP percent, flat HP, maybe some defense in there, and some effect resistance, maybe some speed too, making her faster is always nice. Is always a positive thing. So that about covers Natasha for this video. If you have any further questions about the character, please feel free to ask me down below in the comments section. And if you've made it this far in the video and you like the content thus far, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you want to go the extra mile and serve the community even further, and the channel most importantly, be sure to become a Patreon via the Patreon website. All the links are in the pinned comments section below. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you folks on the next video. Take care. Peace.